Okay, great. Let's call this meeting of the Hindley Homes and Royal Building Committee to order at 6:01 p.m. on January 21st, 2026. First order of business is to approve meeting minutes from our December 17th, 2025 meeting. If I could get a motion for that. Sarah moves, Rob seconds, all in favor. Tom and Dennis, if we can't see you guys, I would just say I'm going to assume you say yes on these kind of votes unless you go off mute and say no.
Perfect.
That way you don't have to go on video and vote. I'll just assume silence is consent. Um, does not look like we have any members of the public here to make public comment. In terms of the chair's report, nothing really outside of what's on the agenda. I was at OAC this morning, as I do every other Wednesday, and everything's going well. The one thing I would note, um, just so that it's in the record, is that the construction superintendent at Holmes, Evan Nelson, has had some surgery and is laid up at home, and it sounds like there's a chance that he won't be with us, for quite a while. The kids at the school have all gotten together. Paula coordinated this and are sending get well cards to him. I got a get well card that I'm sending to him on behalf of the building committee that Scott's going to deliver. But let's keep Evan in our thoughts. It sounds like he's got a bit of a road to recovery, and he has been just an unbelievable performer and resource for this project at Hindley. Big shoes to fill. I know O&G's got a very, very deep bench and will do that. But we should just, if we get a minute, send some healing thoughts Evan's way. He's a good dude. Um,
Thanks, Chris.
yeah. With that, Scott, I'll turn it over to you to give a quick update on how we're doing in construction progress, and then we can jump into the wish list and the financial report, which is all kind of intertwined.
Yeah, sure. Hi everybody. Things have been going really well. The transfer from our phase two into phase three went really well. The moves went well. Um, and that was due to, much coordination on our end. We started very early coordinating with Kevin Minrat and his teams and with the schools. I think the principals can attest that I don't know that it could have really went much better. So that
Yep.
was really good. And phase three is starting off really well. No real surprises. A lot more of the same small stuff we saw in the other phases, as far as removing some millwork and having some missing plaster to patch. So we'll have a little additional wall maybe to build, or maybe a.
Just if you don't mind, Scott, just for the benefit of the folks who aren't as plugged into the phasing plans, just maybe high level, what does phase three entail at each of
So
the schools?
So the interior phases, starting from when we finished last summer, have been a collection of classrooms throughout the school. So basically, we're taking over, anywhere from like 4 to 6 classrooms and maybe some small resource rooms, and we'll take that spot over. As we're able to take that over, these classes were moved into another area of the building. So that's why it's like a small group of classrooms. And then when we finish those, folks move from another area of the building into these areas that were just finished, and we take over another, 4 to 6 rooms to renovate. This phase three will take us to April vacation. At that time, we will have some more moves, in some cases, and in some cases not. In some cases, people are going to stay put, as we go through the last 2 months of the school year to start some final phase 4A, which is possibly, grabbing a room depending on the school to renovate, and then into 4B, which is a summer start, not an April start, um, to round out the interior renovations portion. And then also when the summer hits, we'll get into some other new construction areas. As for homes, for instance, we'll have a new addition on the back of the library, making that GLC transition. And in the case of Hinley, we'll be removing the old library from the building and restoring the old front main entrance of the building, and then extending that bus loop. So that's kind of a nutshell of what's going forward.
Great. And
And again, these,
one thing I
yeah,
heard today that was good news is that the all important detention system sounds like it's installed and up and running at Hintley. Um, as folks maybe recall from way back during the planning and P&Z approval portion of this project, stormwater management in particular at Hinley, but also at Holmes, was a huge issue, both for the town and for the neighbors. And so, although we won't really see the practical benefit of that system until the spring, um, that's a big milestone.
yep, and all that work went very well. Again, thanks to Ross and his school and teachers for being cooperative. As Matt had brought up, it was quite noisy on that side of the wing with, excavators running and equipment running most of the day. I'm sure the kids were interested in it for quite a while. But that work is completed and went very well, especially for the time of year. So it was good. Um,
Go
oh,
ahead.
I was just going to say, so other than that, like I said, the phase three stuff is underway at Royal. We're moving along also on the music and art wing edition. Um, we got some inspections done this week, so we're starting to close the walls and starting already to drywall that addition. So things are moving along quite well there.
Um, then why don't we jump into the one thing that we actually made a lot, it seems like we've made a lot of progress on since we last talked about it in December. And these things are tied together. So I think we should talk about the wish list items and the financial update um, kind of as one thing. But I got ahead of myself. Does anybody have any questions for Scott or Matt based on Scott's report on progress before we move ahead? Okay. Um, so Matt, thank you for sending this around at about 4:15 today. Matt and Scott and Travis have been working hard to flesh out the wish list. Um, the list itself only has one new item on it, which we can highlight, which is window shades at the schools, and I can talk about that in a second. Um, but what they did is they fleshed out the list by um, putting in more milestone timeframes as well as um, costs and indicating where those costs were estimate versus where those costs were um, more fully fleshed out, and then also um, on the timeline side, highlighting which items needed to be started and which phases of each of those projects needed to be started by when. So I don't know if you guys have had a chance to look at that. It may make sense, Sarah. I don't know. We can either make Matt the host and he can share his screen, or if you can share that PDF so people can see it. But before we do that and go through the list, um, because any discussion of the wish list has to be tied into a discussion of um, how much money we have and how much we think we're still going to spend out of our contingencies. And so, if you look at the financial snapshot that Josh Kaufman sent around, or that I forwarded around at about a little bit before 3 o'clock today, um, we still, excuse me, um, we still have about $30 million. Um, we're obligated, we still have about $30 million of total spend. We're at about, two-thirds, again, a little bit more than two-thirds of the way through the project. But the numbers that really um, impact the discussion of the wish list And those are budgeted items, but the numbers that really impact the discussion of the wish list are the owner contingency summary and the CM contingency summary. Um, and you'll see at, just for so we have it in front of us, for Hinley, we've got about $890,000 of remaining owner contingency, about $705,000 of CM contingency, and we're looking at a proposed aggregate spend on the wish list of about 313,000. For homes, we've got about 1,200,000 of owner's contingency, about 800,000 of CM contingency, and we're looking at an aggregate proposed spend on the wish list of about 385,000. And then on Royal, got about 1,100,000 of owner contingency, 775 of CM contingency, and we're looking at about a $367,000 total spend, of which roughly, let's just call it 200,000, because I'm rounding up, is a new main entrance exterior. Um, so I still think we're in really, really good shape, but that just is kind of level setting. Um, I guess with that, maybe I would turn it over to Scott and Matt with input from Travis, and maybe we can just go through each of the items. I think what I would propose to do is there's a couple of items on here you'll see in orange or red for each of the schools where Matt has highlighted that he needs pricing approval to release materials by either early or middle February. That's needed before we have our next HHR meeting. So I think what I would like to do in this meeting following discussion is get approval from folks to allow those particular items to move forward. The one caveat on that is one of those items is the Royal entrance, and I think it's premature for us to turn everyone loose on that one. And that's a big spend. So that one we may just hang on to, but the other ones are not that big, either individually or in the aggregate. And we can have a fulsome discussion on them, but with a hope that we can let the O&G and KG&D teams move forward on those items. Last part of my monologue is this is not formal approval of the spend. These are still estimates. Um, Scott and his team need to go out and get hard pricing, and then these churn into change orders. And we have a process in place for change order approval based on the size of the change order. This is just authorizing them to continue moving down the road on these items, putting orders in for materials, et cetera. They'll continue to work on the pricing to get it down as best they can, and then we'll submit these as formal change orders. I guess with
So,
that, I'll turn it over to Scott and Matt.
so just quickly before I have Matt run through, so what I'll have Matt do is just kind of go through and explain to you guys, what this all means that he sent over to you instead of, you having to take a lot of time to figure it out. But a couple of things, Chris, is that some of these highlighted numbers in the cost area that Matt has highlighted, those are the real numbers for those. Um,
Okay.
and the other part of that is that generally what I've seen so far with the rough order of magnitude that we had plugged in is we're right around where we had thought we were going to be with these numbers. So there's no real surprise. Um, I don't think to what you guys had originally told us to move forward with
Mm-hmm.
as far as this pricing goes. So I'll have Matt take over, and then just one last thing is that the numbers that you had sent over from Josh, I quickly cross-reference them with my numbers, and they're all right there. So
Okay, great.
that I'm comfortable with everything that Josh has provided.
Okay.
Matt, you wanna run
And
through and
just
let everyone know.
I would just jump in too and preface this by we touched on what was left with the contingency, right, Scott? And I think we're tracking, you were saying between 700 and $800,000 for just the CM contingency
That's
alone, never
correct.
mind the owner contingency.
Per
And
school.
per
Yeah.
school,
Per school.
right? And how that's tracking is that it's likely it's highly likely we're not going to spend the balance of that. It's highly likely we're not going to spend a value that equals each one of these schools' wish list items. So the likelihood is that the wish list actually gets covered by the give back or the unencumbered costs for the CM contingency, and we're not even
Right.
dipping into the owner's contingency. Just keeping that in mind for
Yeah, and
reference sake.
maybe I'm oversimplifying it from a construction accounting standpoint, but I kind of look at those numbers in the aggregate, right? It's all the
Yeah.
town's money. It's all the
Yep.
town's money, right?
Hmm.
Um, so
You're right. Yeah, the owners and the CM's contingency, as far as you're concerned, it's all the town's money, and yeah, anything that doesn't get spent comes back. So,
right.
But in that light too, right? When we agreed to kind of walk down this road was to try to deliver a little above and beyond what the original scope was to kind of make these all three of these schools a little more finished than I think what they originally had planned on,
Hmm.
yeah,
Hmm.
and still be well under budget.
Right.
yes, they'll be comfortable. Yeah. Okay.
All right. So the left side of this PDF, Scott, Travis, Kevin Monrette, and Chris have spent 4 or 5 months narrowing down which items will compose this entire wish list. And everything that you see in white are items that we're pursuing as part of this project. Everything that is in gray below is stuff that has been deferred to the district's operating budget or the PTA and will be done at a later time with Kevin and the principals and whoever else is involved with that. Um, the main line here you'll see is the description, so that kind of narrows down what the scope of work is.
Yep.
In the cost line, the non-green cells are still estimate values, and the green cells are hard numbers that we've been able to get based off of what the subs have come back to us with. And I'll make this a little bigger so everyone can see. Um, And so the two lines here we've got for the flooring of the corridor ramps and replacing shades throughout the school. We're at about 95% confident that those are the right numbers. Scott and I still have to spend some time vetting out the numbers themselves, but those are the prices that we've got from the subs. And so Scott and I sat down the other day to put some dates to everything. And we allocated some time for releasing of materials and mobilizing of subcontractors, getting the change orders to the design team and to the building committee for formal approval, giving the subcontractors time to price out the sketches accurately, and then giving our O&G and AP some time to review the sketches and distribute them as we need to the subs. And then everything from today to those dates are time for KG&D and D and their consultants to create sketches and design of all of these wish list items. The lines in red and highlighted cells in orange are critical dates. Um, we've given ourselves some buffer time, so we're beyond this critical date of January 5th that we predicted for doing bathrooms in phase three, but that just means that either we defer that work to a later phase, most likely this summer, um, or we crunch and we try and narrow down some of those time frames that we have for review and approval in order to squeeze it into this phase. Most likely not at this point, but it'll all most likely bundle into the summer. So each page will be for each individual school. Here at Holmes, we have three different items that we're very confident about the pricing. And then at Royal, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different prices that we have that we're confident about based off of subcontractor input. And then finally at the bottom, you'll see the total based off of the accurate pricing and the projected pricing. Um, and they're all roughly in the 350,000 plus or minus a few thousand range. So for Royal, we're sitting at about 368,000. For Holmes, we're sitting at about 385,000. And then for Hinley, we're sitting at about 315,000. And those numbers are still subject to change based off of the proposals that start filtering in.
Thanks, Matt.
But
Any
just gonna
questions
say,
or go ahead, Scott.
I was just gonna just say, like, again, the numbers that Travis and I had plugged in here are tracking. So I don't see anything jumping that's going to jump off the page and change these numbers greatly. So if it did go up or down, I think it would be a small amount, just so everybody knows. And then, Chris, I don't know how deep, do you want to get into a deeper discussion by window shades? I just kind of want to let everyone know, like, that number that Matt and I have plugged into each school for window shades is the entire building. Okay, today we had talked about this number will go down, right? Because we're not doing the whole building. We're going to go through and decide which
Right.
areas need to really be replaced or not. So
Right.
just so you know, that's a plug number of the entire building to give everyone an idea of like the worst case scenario of every shade replaced in the schools. This is what the number would be.
Yeah, so people understand where that came from. I think, upon inspection, it was discovered it really, I think, came up initially at Hinley on the east facing side of Hinley, which gets a ton of sunlight. That some of the pull down shades on the windows weren't in great shape. There was a discussion about, do we just replace the ones that are in bad shape? Do we replace all the ones in a given room? What's the best way forward? Kind of fast forwarding a little bit, I think where we are is, if we have to replace a shade in a room, we should probably replace all the shades in that room so the room looks nice. We would replace shades with the existing type of shade that's in there now. Even though in some of the new construction there's a higher grade of shade. Um, and then, what we need to do is, in effect, do an inventory, if you will, that Kevin and his team and the O&G team will do a walk around and determine how many shades and how many rooms need to be replaced. And then Dr. Byrne made the good point earlier today, which is, shades have a security function as well, and so those need to be um, up to spec, if you will. And in addition, on those classroom doors that have a glass window in them, shades need to be installed on those glass windows for security purposes, so that in the event of a lockdown, teachers can pull the shades both from the hall and thus close off the rooms both from the hallway and from the exterior. So that was a bit of a new item. It wasn't one of those aesthetic items that, as we did our initial walk around, was on the list. It came up during the course of construction, and then I think, even more importantly, kind of migrated from a nice to have aesthetic item to a safety item. So um, that's the story on the shades. So um, with that, I guess I would stop. We've got Matt's input, Scott's input, my input. Would like to hear from building committee members on questions or comments on any aspect of this list, where we are financially, et cetera.
Makes sense to me.
Okay.
Anybody else?
Yeah, Rob, any thoughts on this one way or another?
Yeah, I think I'm good with it. I think if you kind of add up what we have as a total contingency right now, it looks like it's about 5 million. And this is like $1 million, right? And you $1.1 million between the three schools, so roughly 20%. I don't know.
Yeah.
Side, we came in and reviewed this, right? Took a look at like what we're doing, what we're adding, all these upgrades or things that need to be done. 20% of the contingency, I think, is pretty much in line. I mean, I don't know what you guys have seen in the past, but and just from a maybe this is just ironic. When Kevin had sent out, what we're expecting back from the state, and if you kind of look at it, I think we're going to expect back about $21 million out of the one
Right.
spend, one-on-one spend, which
Out of
is
the aggregate 101, yeah.
so remarkably, this is 20% of
Right.
I'm not saying they're correlated, right? I'm just
Yeah, I think that's a coincidence, but yeah.
but yeah,
And none of this, just to be clear, none of these items, I don't expect any of these items are going to be eligible for reimbursement.
yeah, and I wasn't thinking that way, Chris. I'm just thinking if you're a taxpayer, if you're anyone, to get all these upgrades for a 20% of that, I'm absolutely fine with it.
Okay. No, I think that's a good way to look at it.
I mean, as a
Um,
whole, Chris and committee, I mean, Travis could attest to this. I mean, we've done this for a while. I mean, this financially, this project is in really good shape.
Yep, it is. So we're not concerned about going ahead with
Okay.
any of these items.
Yeah, Chris, I think it's money well spent, and I think we're very conservative in terms of how much ownership contingency and we will have left over. So,
okay. Hey, buddy. Okay.
Yeah, for
I
me,
guess, Travis, before I'm sorry, Dennis, go ahead.
I was just going to say, going back to your previous point, this is all town's money. I feel as the Board of Ed member, I feel it's the same thing. It's either gonna, I think these are things we would eventually do. So when it comes out of this budget or our budget, it's all still going to come from the town at some point. So just do we decide to do it now or later? And for me, since we have the money, we may as well go and do it now.
Yeah. Okay. No, good input, everybody. I guess, Travis, the one question I have is on the Royal entrance.
Mhm.
I'm struggling a little bit with what we think the path to kind of moving forward on that is. Like what has to be done, or where do you stand? And it's because that's the single biggest item. Where do you kind of stand in the process on that, and how do you sort of see the process going
for the
forward? And I guess said another way, like when's the point where we really need to fish or cut bait on that one?
Well, just
Well, I mean,
quickly,
we
Matt,
haven't-
Matt, can you pull that up, that what we had for timelines on the front entrance for Royal?
I know it's highlighted in orange, so I mean it looks like a right now kind of thing.
that is a close to real number
That
for
is.
that
So I've
outside
got,
canopy.
so just the 170 number I have in there, I've got $150,000 of real number in there. I put a $20,000 contingency on it because I think we're going to need a little bit of steel work for hanging the
Yep.
awning, which I feel that 20 grand would cover because I feel
Yep.
that that's okay.
Yep.
That's the only portion that I don't have locked in, which I am going to be in the process of dialing that number in the next week.
Yeah.
But these numbers, the dates that you're seeing here, it's really based on, me needing to get shop drawings done for the cast stone, getting those approved and getting that ordered. And that's where you see that 16-week lead time right there. You're looking at, a 3 to 4 week for shop drawings to get produced and then probably a 12-week lead time on actually getting the stones made.
Right.
And these dates right now work, but we do have a little bit of buffer in there, as Matt said, to still be able to finish this front entrance in time for school opening.
Well, because you're trying to get an early start date here in April.
Correct.
Yeah.
How much will that affect the work on the front of the school, how much will that affect the operation of the school and the ability for people to come in and out of school? You need to find an alternative entrance for everybody?
So, yep, I've talked to Natasha about that, and her and her team have put together the beginnings of a plan that we feel is going to work rather well. We're really not going to change up their pattern, their bus pattern or drop-off pattern. The only thing that's really going to change is the fact that the kids can't come in the front of the school. They're going to enter from the side entrance and exit from the side entrance. Aside from that, they said that the driving patterns will remain the same. They came up with a nice idea to minimize, disruption to what they do normally.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think you, Chris, you have what you need to, pursue. You have the rendering. I think that was in that last packet, or PowerPoint of the different items of what that front entrance looks like. So yeah, you have what you
Okay.
need,
Would
I
you do
think, to
me
make a decision on that.
would you
Yeah,
do me a favor and resend to me just the rendering of the front entrance as
sure,
a separate slide?
sure.
What I what I'm not 100% sure of yet is whether we need to have architectural review look at that. I want to run that up
Hmm.
run that up the flagpole, maybe with John Zagrodzky, and get his input on that. Because it's the only school that
You're right.
wasn't getting a nice new entrance. So I don't
Yep.
think it's going to be all that hard of a sell. But I also don't want to get caught short on that.
Yep. Good point. And I'm also, I'm gonna talk to Eric tomorrow. I don't think I'm not sure if he's had any conversations with the town about that. I don't know if it came up during any of the early review meetings, but I'm going to ask him to refresh his memory, see if any of that was discussed early on with them.
Okay.
All right. And then what we should show you on this list that's tied to this is the interior portion. So we should just show you kind of like a ceiling plan and a floor plan of what that's going to look like. But we're essentially going to kind of bump up that ceiling in there, kind of put a little wooden ceiling that we're doing elsewhere in the different schools, and
Mm-hmm.
incorporate a couple of the existing gargoyles within that bumped up ceiling. So we have most of that. We are working on the engineering on actually how to support those existing gargoyles right now.
Okay. I want to make sure, and my apologies for not being more on top of this, but I want to make sure we're dotting our I's and crossing our T's with the various approval boards.
It's a good point with the ARB for that entrance. Yeah. Yep. Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
So I guess with that, does anybody have any issue with on these items that are highlighted in red, where we basically need to authorize these guys to move forward on the next steps? Any objection from any of the committee members to doing that? Doesn't sound like it. Okay. So I guess we're good to go on the critical time items that are highlighted on Matt's PDF. That's the gut renovation of the single user toilet at Hinley. It's the it's the Royal entrance and Royal lobby. It's the new wall tile in Royal for the infill corridor, and it's the floor tile and expansion joints and additional door and steps from the stage. No, I'm sorry.
No.
New rubber treads at Holmes.
Mhm.
Okay, great. With that, then I would like to move on to the one thing we need to actually take action on here, which is approving the payment apps. You can stop share. I mean, you can leave your screen up if you want, Matt, or you can stop sharing so we can see the whole group for voting purposes. Thank you. Could I get a motion to approve pay application number 20 for the Holmes Elementary School dated December 31st, 2025 in the amount of $307,589.15. Sarah moves, Dennis seconds, Rob's all in favor. Great. Could I get a motion to approve pay application number 20 for the Royal Elementary School dated December 31st, 2025 in the amount of $738,946.94. Sarah moves, Rob seconds, all in favor. Dennis? Yes? Can I get a motion to approve pay application number 20 for the Hindley Elementary School dated December 31st, 2025 in the amount of $490,781.79. Sarah moves, Dennis seconds, all in favor. Great. All right, terrific. Well, that was it for business. Anything that anybody else wants to bring up before we move to adjourn? The next time we meet is going to be February the 18th. In the meantime, we're just going to keep chugging along. If not, then could I get a motion to adjourn? Tom moves, Sarah seconds, all in favor. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, ONG team. Thanks, KG&D team.
Yep,
Really
thanks
good
everyone.
work.
Thank you.
All right.
Chris.
Thank
Good night,
you.
Good night.
everyone.
Thanks, guys. Thank
All
you.
right,
Good
thank
night,
you.
everybody.